Hello, YouTube. The Kamchatka Peninsula, a 1,250 kilometer long peninsula in the Russian Far East, with an area of about 270,000 square kilometers. The Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Okhotsk make up the peninsula's eastern and western coastlines, respectively. Immediately offshore along the Pacific coast of the peninsula runs the 10,500 meter deep Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. There is a large military presence on the peninsula. The home base of Russia's Pacific submarine fleet is across Avacha Bay from Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky at the Rybachi base. There are also several Air Force bases and radar sites in Kamchatka. I've seen different ways the lake is called: Kaligir, Kaligir, and more. We will refer to all of them, but you understand, it's the same lake, just different ways to pronounce its name. The depth in the lake, they're solid, in some places up to 100 meters. The water is fresh, but not quite. It is better to drink from springs and streams. The lake was formed in the pre-glacial period and is a flooded caldera of the sinkhole of an ancient paleovolcano. People lived along the shores back in the Neolithic for 2,000 years before Common Era. And it is easy for everyone to see this. You can just dig there, according to the people who frequent that site, and you will find something. Kamchatka has a mysterious, almost mystical lake, Bolshoy, or Big Kalygir, compared to which even the secrets of the Valley of Geysers and the Valley of Death of the peninsula pale. The fact is that Kaligir hides something that cannot be explained by any natural phenomena. Lake Kaligir is located on the eastern coast of Kamchatka, south of the Zhupanovsky estuary, 130 kilometers from Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky. It consists of two reaches, Bolshoy, Big, and Mali, Small Kaligir, and is separated from the bay of the same name by a sand and pebble embankment broken in the northern part. The Pacific Arctic smelt herd reproduces in the lake basin. I'm talking about fish. In winter, Kaligir is a favorite fishing spot for Kamchatka residents. A narrow sand spit separates the lake from the ocean bay of the same name on the eastern coast of the peninsula. The lake is connected to the bay by a narrow channel through which fish enter the lake and the Kaligir River flowing into it to spawn. The picturesque bitter salty reservoir with a total area of 20 square kilometers is surrounded from the north and south by high hills overgrown with stone, birch, alder, and cedar. The southern panorama is decorated with a rocky mountain monastery with a mark of about 800 meters, descending by a cliff into the Mali or small lake, which is connected by a channel to Lake Bolshoy Kaligir, or the big lake. It can only be reached by snowmobile or helicopter. So people reach it in the winter, but it's not easy to do so. It takes 40 to 45 minutes to get to the place by helicopter. The overnight stay is in the tents. You bring your own tent. There have been cases that there were delays, for 2 or 3 weeks due to bad weather. Some desperate daredevils at the end of the last century got there on snowmobiles. The difficult journey could take several days, and the snowmobiles were different at the time. Modern, reliable, and high-speed snowmobiles have made this cherished place accessible to those who are not afraid of difficulties. For the first time, the Bolshoy Kaligir Lake was called Kaligirskaya Bay, and it was marked on the map by I.P. Kozyrevsky, the discoverer of the Kuril Islands. Kaligirskaya Bay is marked on his drawing of the Kamchatka Cape and Sea Islands, dated 1726. 13 years later, Kamchatka researcher Krasheninnikov, who visited this area, mentions the existence of Lake Kiger and the Kaligir River, under which modern Lake Bolshoy Kaligir and the Kaligir River are easily guessed. The inner bay, which Krasheninnikov is talking about, is the Kaligir Lip, or Kaligir Bay. The Kaligir Bay area has long been inhabited by the Itelmen people. Krasheninnikov mentions the small village of Kinat, located near the mouth of the Kaligir River. In the old days, a direct route along the Shipun Peninsula passed through this village, connecting the coasts of the Kronotsky and Avacha bays. Traces of this path have been preserved to the present day. The Itelmen village ceased to exist in the 1930s when, by the order of the Kamchatka administration, residents of the coast of the Kronotsky Bay were relocated to the depths of the peninsula. At the end of the 19th century, in connection with the development of fisheries on the peninsula, the village of Kaligir was built on the site of the former Itelmen prison of Kinat. Its inhabitants were engaged in fishing and hunting. During the Russian Civil War in Kamchatka, villagers, as part of the partisan detachments, took part in the defeat of the anti-Red Kremlin White Guards. Now, as already mentioned, there is no village today. Moreover, it was not there already in the 1930s. Otherwise, geologists would have no problems with this place to spend the night. In 1996, the Russian scientist, journalist, and author Psalomchikov came across the magazine Technika Молодежи, issue number 10 for the year 1976, where in the section Anthology of Mysterious Cases, or whatever it was called, there was a note, the case of on the Bolshoy Kaligir Lake. It is a letter from Riga, capital of Soviet Latvia, pensioner, retired person, that the letter was published. Here's what it said. In 1937-1938, I worked as a researcher for the Kamchatka volcanological expedition. In May 1938, together with my comrade Nikolai Melnikov, I happened to travel a long way through the Kamchatka wilds, 400 kilometers without roads, through swamps, rivers. There was also the Bolshoy Kaligir Lake on our way. I had to walk waist deep in water, bypassing the hanging tops of the alder trees. The weather was extremely sunny. The water in the lake was completely calm. Very close to us, we saw frequent splashes of large fish. I went first, and somewhere in the middle of the way, I saw a sheer cliff near which the alder trees did not grow. There was a cave in the rock. Thinking that it would be possible to dry off and relax in it, I headed for the shore. Bending down, I entered the cave, but when I raised my head, I saw that the whole cave was flooded with water. In the depths of it, a rocky black-colored island was visible, in the middle of which a bright blue-white radiance was spreading. I looked at it for only about 2 minutes, and when I heard Melnikov's footsteps behind me and looked back, I was plunged into darkness. I realized that I was blind. Falling into the water on my hands, I screamed, heart-rending, "Nikolai, help me, I can't see anything." Melnikov grabbed me by the arms and dragged me to the exit. For more than a kilometer, waist deep in water, my friend carried me on his shoulders. On the dry shore, among the stunned birches, we lay for a very long time. I still could not see anything. Nikolai tried to reassure me as much as he could, saying that it would pass, everything would be fine, you would see again. And indeed, 10 hours later, I began to distinguish some rapidly jumping white, green, and yellow spots. An hour later, a pink veil appeared in the eyes. The sun was setting, and for the first time in many hours of darkness, I saw clouds, then the tops of birch trees, and my Savior. Many years have passed since then. Second Lieutenant Nikolai Melnikov died during the war near Leningrad. As he told me, he also saw the glow, but only for a short time, literally seconds. Apparently, this circumstance saved him from temporary blindness. Unfortunately, I did not manage to visit Bolshoy Kaligir Lake again, although the thought of the mysterious radiance haunted me for many years. All the specialists I turned to for clarification just shrugged their hands. No one has yet been able to answer the question, what was it? Signed, I.G. Solovyov, Riga. A little lower in the comment, candidate of technical sciences Valery Rodikov wrote the following. A very interesting report about a cave on Lake Bolshoy Kaligir prompts us, first of all, to turn to the theory of atmospheric electricity. It is known that discharges accompanied by electromagnetic radiation at certain wavelengths can affect the retina of the eye, visual acuity, and even lead to temporary blindness. The glow in the cave, judging by the description, looks similar to the lights of St. Elmo. These lights occur when the atmospheric electric field is high. St. Elmo's lights are especially frequent near mountain peaks and during thunderstorms. However, two volcanologists at Bolshoy Kaligir Lake, having penetrated into the cave, found themselves in very special conditions. It is possible that the cave vaults were like part of a huge electric capacitor, and yet the lights of St. Elmo, judging by numerous reports, are an unusual phenomenon, but rather harmless. Is it possible to look for other reasons for what happened? Assumptions about an unexpectedly strong source of radiation will also be justified. The fact that there was no vegetation against the entrance to the cave is well consistent with this. It is unlikely, however, that it is possible to move further in the study of the problem associated with the mysterious glow without having additional information, observations, measurements. Psalomshikov then wanted to explore this site, but it did not work out to organize an expedition at that time for various reasons. To the lake, and even with a team and with some kind of research equipment, you just can't find yourself the money. There was no money. And there was nowhere to wait for support in those days. In general, everything remained at the blah, blah, blah level, as he put it. Years later, Psalomshikov, who passed away in 2021, found an online publication from the year 2012, The Mystery of the Luminous Cave. And here's what the author of the publication stated. The mysterious story was told to me by Vadim Orlov, in those days an employee of the editorial board of the magazine Technika Молодежи. In 1975, the editorial office of the magazine received a letter from geologist I.G. Solovyov, in which he told about what happened to him and his comrade N. Melnikov in 1938 in Kamchatka, near Lake Bolshoy Kaligir. Skirting the shore of the lake, geologists came across a cave in the depths of which there was a pile of crystals on a stone elevation, emitting bright light. Solovyov, who entered first, looked at them and suddenly felt that he was losing his eyesight. A comrade who was following managed to pick him up and carry him outside. It was only a few days later that the author of the letter retained his eyesight, but neither he nor his companion made any more attempts to enter the cave. Therefore, the nature of the strange glow could not be determined. The story seemed interesting, and the editor of the magazine, V. Zakharchenko, suggested that Orlov contact the author to find out more details. For some reason, Orlov failed to do this, and he sent a copy of the letter to the Institute of Volcanology in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, since young geologists worked in the Kamchatka volcanological expedition. But no additional information was sent from there either. With some doubt about the credibility of the story, the editorial board nevertheless decided to publish it under the heading Reader's Letters in the 10th issue of the magazine in 1976, under the heading The Case at Bolshoy Kaligir Lake. I haven't thought about this story for many years, but recently I got my hands on the collection The Great Secrets of Russia Digest, The Great Secrets of Russia of the 20th Century, where this case was described in much more detail. The compiler of the collection, V. Vedeneyev, claims that Solovyov told this story after 60 years of mysterious silence. Apparently, he did not know about the publication in the Technika Молодежи. There are also some discrepancies in his story with the magazine account. For example, there is no mention that some crystals were the source of the bright light. But in general, this story is of undoubted interest to our readers. And then here is the narrative. So in May 1938, geologists I. Solovyov and N. Melnikov, having reached a route assignment, went to practically unexplored areas of Kamchatka. The length of the route was about 500 kilometers, and on their way was the Bolshoy Kaligir Lake. The day they reached the lake, the weather was fine, sunny, and windless. Of course, there were no roads around the lake, but it turned out to be shallow, and geologists ventured to wade to the intended point on the opposite shore. Solovyov, who was walking first, noticed a large sheer cliff near which for some reason there was no vegetation, and at the foot of that cliff was the dark entrance to the cave. Since they had walked most of the way in waist-deep water, they decided to go into the cave to rest and dry off a little. The entrance was low, and Solovyov had to crawl into the cave bent over. To his surprise, it was quite bright there. Looking around, he found that the floor of the cave was flooded with water, and his hopes for the rest were not fulfilled. However, his gaze was attracted by an amazing sight. In the depths of the cave, at its far wall, there was something like a black pedestal, over which a steady and very bright blue-white radiance was spreading from an unknown source. And he managed to note one more strange phenomenon. There was dead silence in the cave, no rustling, no crackling as with electrical discharges, no splashing of water. It was as if everything froze, obeying the unknown power of this radiance. Solovyov felt that he could not move from his place. The radiance was mesmerizing, and some strange visions began to appear in his head. It was completely unclear where in this wilderness such a bright electric light came from. He woke up to the sounds of his comrades' footsteps, who followed him into the cave. When Solovyov tore his gaze away from the source of the radiance and turned to him, he was horrified to find that he could not see anything. This whole world was plunged into darkness. "Kolya, help me! I can't see anything," he shouted to Melnikov. "Just don't look at that light." Melnikov was standing behind him and did not have time to really see the source of the light. He grabbed Solovyov under the armpits and dragged him outside. Then he carried him to a dry shore and laid him on the ground. The sun was shining brightly, But before Solovyov's eyes, there was solid darkness. I'm blind. What's wrong with my eyes? It's okay. Everything will pass, Nikolai reassured him. Your eyes are intact. How long have I been there? A little bit, a couple of minutes. Did you see what it was? No, I did not really have time to look at it. Don't go there anymore. If you go blind too, we won't get out of here. The offer was quite reasonable, and what happened to the comrade was completely incomprehensible. Only when half a day had passed, Solovyov began to distinguish first the light spots and then the outlines of objects. Geologists spent almost a day a kilometer from the mysterious cave, and only then they continued on the route. Neither in the letter to the Technika Молодежи nor in the later message to which Vedeneev refers, the geologist does not say whether they reported to the authorities about the incident in the mysterious cave. And Melnikov died during the World War II, and Solovyov did not manage to visit those places anymore. It was only many years later that he tried to tell his story to several specialists or experts, but they just shrugged their shoulders. After the publication in Technika Молодежи, a group of engineers and students from Tomsk, a city in Siberia, tried to find this mysterious cave, but did not calculate their capabilities. There were 2 students in the group who could not master this difficult route. One fell in, the other twisted her leg, and the expedition had to be turned off halfway. A little later, helicopter pilot Nikolaev flew over the lake several times at low altitude with a standard military radiometer, but did not find any focus of increased radioactivity. However, staying in the cave did not seem to affect Solovyov's health, since Vedeneev refers to his message made 60 years later. The mystery of the cave of the Lake Bolshoy Kaligir remains unsolved. Signed, Valentin Psalomshikov. But I couldn't stop here. You see, I collect paranormal information about Kamchatka continuously. Those who watch my videos have seen a number of my presentations about that peninsula. And I found this. The first scientific expedition to the mysterious lake was organized in 1980 by the Russian Geographical Society. It included 5 people, and Igor Solovyov was invited, but he refused due to his advanced age, since a helicopter pilot with a helicopter was not allocated for the purpose of the expedition. As a result, the researchers barely reached Bolshoy Kaligir, and no matter how much they walked along the shore underwater, they didn't find any cave. But they were very surprised by the still living fish with blind eyes that were fluttering in the lake. At the same time, the radiation background was normal. Nothing indicated any danger. It was only at 10 o'clock in the evening, when it was already dark, that something became clear to the researchers. They were sitting by the campfire when suddenly a terrible rumble sounded on the opposite shore of the lake, as if something huge was floating from the bottom of the reservoir. And although the scientists did not see what flew out from the water, but the huge waves that reached them testified to this. Something flew out. Then a yellow dot flashed on the opposite shore, and behind it a blue hemisphere began to flare up, rising above the trees. And so it happened on several times. The researchers were also surprised by the fact that during the surfacing of a mysterious object from under the water, They were seized with such animal horror that only by holding hands and tightly clenching their teeth, they managed to overcome it with difficulty and not rush wherever they looked, not just run away. But as soon as the strange effects ended, the fear also passed. The team had no food or fuel left for further research, and that was the end of the expedition. The organizers of the second expedition, which was organized a year later, equipped themselves for this campaign more competently and carefully, capturing not only an inflatable raft with an engine but also scuba gear. However, after carefully examining the entire shore of the mysterious lake, they did not find the cave with unearthly light described by Solovyov. A survey, just in case, of the neighboring lakes also did not bring any results. Scientists have come to the conclusion that the cave most likely went underwater for this long time, and therefore it needs to be searched with the help of scuba gear. Moreover, in the next expedition should get an echo sounder as well as heavy spacesuits without front glasses, but with video cameras equipped with special filters. All this will help to protect people from the destructive light. The main reason that such an expedition has not been equipped so far is probably clear to everyone. After the collapse of the USSR, it was no longer up to the mysteries of the Itelmen Lake in Kamchatka. However, for some reason, there are still no sponsors to organize the third expedition to Bolshoy Kaligir. Of course, it doesn't seem to cost cheap. However, according to experts and ufologists, the result of these studies may exceed all expectations. According to the hypothesis, a few Russians still interested in the lake's mysteries have, the cave could have been A, the radiation, but as far as they understand, the radiation doesn't glow. But maybe there are some special elements that glow with radiation, for example, the same radium. In addition, over 10 years ago, a scientist from the Institute of Volcanology, Melekesev, told one of the researchers that there is essentially no radiation in Kamchatka. All volcanic vapors are not radioactive. Their radiation is even lower than normal. He called Viluchinsk the most radioactive, and therefore, if there is radiation there on Kaligir, then it will be something out of the ordinary. B, phosphorus, or some other luminous elements. C, suffocating gas that causes hallucinations and vision loss. D, it's just that geologists had drunk a lot shortly before, but this point refutes the fact that those living on Kaligir are afraid of this place. Speaking specifically, if this is not a UFO or a supernatural intelligence, then one researcher is 95% sure that these are radon gas outlets, maybe with some other effects. In general, Kaligir continues to surprise. Only the investigation comes to a dead end. Serious and long-term experiments are needed. So this is what I have so far. And if there's anything of value that I will come up with, I'll do a video update. It would be great to know what the indigenous population in the area knew about the lake's strangeness, but they were simply relocated somewhere else. I think when they refer to people living on the lake, maybe those who frequent it for the purpose of fishing and live in the area nearby. By the way, there still may be legends among the descendants of those who were moved away by the authorities, but that's a very interesting research, and I'm not sure if we have the capabilities to do so. I keep thinking about the first expedition in 1980. Excuse me. It had Valery Dvuzhilny of the Dalnegorsk crash fame among the explorers. I wonder if any more notes were left by him when he died some years ago. I keep thinking about the objects that they observed over the lake. The coast of Lake Bolshoy Kaligir is not a place where it is pleasant to be on a dark, moonless night. Experts who study the paranormal say so. They mention the glow from under the water, which has been observed in this lake. I understand there are hypotheses about an underwater base in that lake, and of course they point to aliens and so forth. I keep thinking about the other fascinating, uncanny sometimes, paranormal phenomena of Kamchatka. But I'm sure you will see it in my videos. This is what I wanted to let you know today. If you like my research and can support me, you can find the links on how to do it in the description to this video. Please like my videos. Please tell others about my work. Thank you.